Hello, everybody. I got a big husky here, and I'm here with Master Phil. Yeah, little big boy. Yeah, little big boy. Here with Master Phil, and we are going to talk about what is self-defense, because I kind of think that most people really don't know. So let's talk about that. I don't have my notes here with me. Do you recall what Matose said? Because it was, what is self-defense and what is true self-defense?
One was in true self-defense, there is no body contact.
And there was an expansion on that.
I'm not, that one you did. But when you look at self-defense, I think when most people think about self-defense, you think about a physical interaction, you think about fighting more or less. And I think what we wanted to share with that is that'd be like the final stage. That'd be like when you've screwed up and haven't neutralized it and made that person your friend before it's gotten to the point.
He's drinking my wine.
He's trying to get my beer here.
Silly boy.
A good boy. So like when you look at human interactions, relationships, really, you're going to be aware of when someone's angry with you, when you piss someone off unintentionally or intentionally, depending on what is going on. So you know that there's potential conflict brewing. So what are you doing to transform that from a negative to a positive, to make that person your friend, to bring harmony to what's going on, to the situation, so that doesn't escalate to him pulling a knife, wanting to smash you in the head of the ball, leave the store, or something like that.
Well, I always remember that guy in Niagara Falls 25 years ago, something like that. I don't remember exactly how it was, but I had made an arrangement with a Buddhist monastery in Niagara Falls for the adults to go. And me and my boys, we'd gone down into the garden, the park, and I don't remember why we were exactly where we were, because we weren't going to go on the Maid of the Mist or something like that.
I think you were getting some food, sir.
Probably.
If you're alive with food and eat, this guy is behind you.
But we were in a line, and I had on one of the school T-shirts, and on the T-shirt, back of the T-shirt, it says, "In true self-defense, there's no body contact."
Yeah, really good shirt.
Which is, and this guy taps me on the shoulder, and he's going, "This is the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen." Right? And he did that with the French-Canadian accent there, right? Because he was a Quebecer. And he said, "So what, are you in the martial arts or something?" I went, "Yeah, I'm a white belt." And Kurt's like, "Yeah, this is great." So he's telling, he was in some dojo in Montreal or something like that.
Oh, wasn't he in Hulk of
Actually, he might have been, yeah. But it was Quebec. I didn't, and Quebec's an interesting place. It really is. But we started carrying on a conversation about the whole thing. Well, as it turned out, he agreed that in true self-defense there was no body contact when he was buying us a beer. Right? Because I totally turned it the way he was thinking around. And capitalism, and by the way, you know that the term capitalism is actually derogatory? It's a derogatory term, but it's the one that's used. I'm about as free market as any person could ever be. But like anything else, it can go off the rails very, very easily. And it goes off the rails. It's gone off the rails in the martial arts world because of exploitation.
Yeah. If you look at Canada and the US, there is no actual free market. There's the illusion. People believe they're in a free market, but they're not.
Yeah, no, there's no free market, especially not in Canada. I can't speak with so much authority in the U.S., but in Canada, yeah, there's no free market. There's a free market here in Romania because you still have mom and pop corner stores everywhere.
Yeah.
This whole town is mom and pop places. There ain't no McDonald's in this city.
Thank God.
Oh yeah, but it's happened in martial arts too, and one of the big ones is combat systems. Now, I have. I'm going to piss people off with this one. Oh, well. Modern warfare, there's very little hand-to-hand combat in modern warfare. Now, they train people still in it, but there's very little hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, you're not, like, you look at warfare, what it's been compared to, like, Vietnam. And then that kind of in WW2, WW1.
And even with Vietnam, it was starting to get away from it.
Yeah.
I would say the best era for true hand-to-hand was the First World War, where there was so much ground fighting and standing in front of guys. By the Second World War, they had a lot of high-powered artillery that took it, plus the aircraft. The aircraft changed.
We're definitely not in a time period anymore where people go to battle with swords and spears.
So, the guy in the khakis who's got frickin' arms this big, who's talking about this combat system he guarantees is going to work because it worked for him. Well, you need to define that a little bit better. What you talking about? The fact you won every bar fight you were ever in? Or, because I've known people that have served in Iraq, and none of them were ever in any hand-to-hand combat. They shot people, but they were never in that knife fight to the death like things used to be. And then you've got the big problem with combat. Let's suppose that Buddy, who's promoting his combat system, actually is a military man, and he's not just full of shit. And a good example of guys who actually are real combat guys are the Sistema guys.
Yeah.
They're the real thing.
Agreed.
Right? They teach some great stuff, man. I'm impressed by the stuff that comes out of Vladimir's teachings. And it's great. Don't get the idea I'm telling you not to learn it. It's not what I'm talking about. Learn whatever you can learn. You cannot lose if you are still learning. It's the belief in its purpose that I have the problem with. Combat system is kill or be killed.
Yeah, it's not self-defense.
It's not self-defense.
It's a different animal.
Self-defense is, oh shit, how do I get out of this? Right? And keep my kids intact. A bar fight is two guys trying to figure out who's got the bigger dick. And yeah, I behaved like that when I was 19. Not when I was 45.
Yeah, and you look at when, I think for most people when they first join a martial art, if they're part of the focus and reason for joining is self-defense, they're looking at it from a point of view and understanding that you need some kind of physical skills to deal with things physically if it goes that way. But then you need, throughout the journey, you should also learn the skills of being able to de-escalate, being able to recognize when a situation potentially can go south, or that you shouldn't be walking down the street at a certain time of night or downtown during, like that time went to Thursday through Saturday night. You shouldn't be there if you don't want to have a problem, especially the last while there.
Well, I remember it was Christmas in 2015, and Kurt was working at the Michigan Tavern in LaSalle.
Yeah.
And it was Boxing Day. And he said to me, he says, hey, you gonna come in tonight while I'm working? I went, that's not a bad idea. And he says, okay, good, I'll pick you up at the beginning of my shift, because I don't drive, right? No vision, no drive. And this is before I had any surgery done at all in my eyes. So I go in there, and I'm sitting at the bar, and You know, the owner really liked Kurt. Kurt was a chef. He was a cook. He was a hell of a cook. He is a hell of a cook. And I was going to be there from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till closing. And at one point in time, this man walks in. And Kurt sees him and goes over and talks to him. Because, you know, like any restaurant, it's up and down as to how busy you are. And falls over and Kurt introduces me to the guy. And this guy's a big boy. He's a big boy. I don't mean he's carrying extra weight. He's just a big boy. And he had the same style of appearance that I do. You know, like I kind of look like what the devil was the name of that TV show that about the bikers that ran for a while there?
Oh, wow. I know what you mean, Ken.
And I mean, I look like a biker reject. Did Scott just say something?
Yeah. Say it again, sir.
Or maybe he's talking to Alpha.
Possibly.
But it was. I watched the show because Peg Bundy was in it.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
And you know, I mean, you're not seeing the ponytail right behind there. The only reason I like ponytails is it keeps my hair from getting knotted. And I'm talking to this guy, and you know, we're going back and forth. He's talking to me how much you like Kurt and all that type of stuff, and you know, so you know, did you taught your son? And well, no, I didn't. My instructor taught him. I taught my other children, but going back and forth. So I get up and I gotta go to the bathroom. I got a leather jacket on. I got my hands in my pocket. He goes, "You call yourself a fucking martial arts master? You got your hand? That's stupid. What if I went and did all this to you right now?" And I looked at him and said, "Why would I feel threatened by you?" He goes, "Well, what's that supposed to mean?" I said, "You're a friend of my son. We're inside in a bar with 1 million people around here to witness this thing. What do I have to be concerned about when we're carrying on this nice civil conversation?" And he went, "Well, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to go take a leak. And you got two choices with this, right? And you know me, I will say this straight. I said, you can come and hold it, or you can buy me around." He looked at me and he went, "Oh yeah, I'll buy you around." I came back and he bought around and we sat and we talked. And he was just flabbergasted. And I'm going, "Don't you realize that everything I just did was self-defense?"
And this is a really good example in that Master Art has numerous times de-escalated potential situation that would have physical, and you know, and maybe the person in depending on which person we're talking about, you know, you weren't best friends after, but the conflict didn't become physical, and that's part of the thing that, you know, you need to understand that self-defense, it going physical is like 1/10 of what it's about, you know, having the awareness, knowing how to de-escalate, how to communicate and bring harmony back to a situation, a relationship, so that it won't go physical.
Well, I always remember that he pulled the knife on me at Chrysler.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
And when I say pulled the knife, like he wasn't carrying a switchblade or something. He was cutting up boxes and he had a razor knife. And he was furious at me. And yeah, I can understand why. I was, you know, kind of being an ass. I will quite often say things to people like I did with that guy at the bar, asking if you're either going to buy me a drink or come and hold it while I pee, just to get a rise out of them, to see what they're going to do. Right? Because you challenge a man's masculinity, and then you see what kind of a man you got. And I was saying stuff to this guy, and he just finally lost it. "I'm going to cut you, bitch," and all this type of stuff. And I'm standing there, I'm looking at him and said, "Listen, there's 2 things that are going to happen here. 3 things that can happen here. 1, you're going to move with that knife and you're going to cut me. I'm probably going to go to the hospital because that thing's new. You're going to get fired. and there's going to be charges laid because Chrysler is going to insist on charges being laid. And this is just going to be a hell of a mess because I hurt your little feelings. Second thing is, I'm going to take that knife away from you and I'm going to bust you up. This is probably what's going to happen. I'm going to bust you up really good. You're going to end up in a hospital bed. We're both going to get fired. And there's just nothing good about that. I say, you can put the fucking thing down and let's go get a coffee, and you're buying, douchebag. And he bought the coffee. You learn to feel the room. It's like teaching a martial arts class. You go out there and you go, I wonder what these people are going to be like tonight. You got to feel the room to know what it is you can get away with. And when it comes to self-defense situations, I like to go for what is referred to as a pattern reset whenever possible. Say something off the wall enough to make the guy go, huh? Yeah. And be confused because that takes away the angers.
Yeah, mentally shocking them to throw them off balance, you regaining balance.
But you have to be really good at that before you do it. And I've always been, verbally, I am, well, my understanding, now I've never met Evan Pantazzi. Never had the privilege. We definitely know of each other very well. Never been in the same room together, but they call him the Picasso of Kosho. And what I've heard, he deserves that title. I guess, I've seen some of his work. He is a brilliant man. Well, I was called the Picasso of profanity. Therefore, I don't know which is more honorable. I think Evan's got me beat on that one. But someday, will I ever meet? Well, I'm going to say something nice, and someday I'll meet him. Not unless he's in Romania, because I'm not going to travel. But I just don't want to travel anymore. I do Zoom sessions, seminars. The verbal skills become very, very important in that process to be able to read what this person is all about. And it's not like, I have had a million different self-defense type incidences, but I've had enough. And there's been no body count from it. I can live the no body contact thing. And I think it's just so important. Because we really do not have the right to harm somebody else. Sometimes you have to, but we do not have that right. And,
it's people really enjoy watching someone who's physically skilled performing martial arts, doing a demo, teaching, doing a self-defense scenario. But, that's still like bottom layer, level of martial arts, because there's so much more, are you developing yourself internally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually? Are you becoming a better person? Are you helping other people to grow and be empowered?
This is Monday, I think, when we're doing this. Last week I wrote an article that's on the World Buddha Alliance blog, and it's called The Scott Hall Incident. And I'm a big wrestling fan. Today's wrestling, modern wrestling, I only like the women's division. The men's division is boring. The women are the new men of wrestling. They're just phenomenal, the shows they put on. But back in the mid-90s, a wrestler by the name of Scott Hall came into existence. He came before that. He started in the 80s, actually, but he started to come into prominence in WCW. The character was Razor Ramon, which later on just ended up being Scott Hall, but he kept the character. He, in his, maybe it's just me, I think, but in his early days, in the early 80s, he was a bartender at a strip club in Orlando. And outside after work, he got into an altercation with a patron who took exception to him being cut off from drinking or something like that. And a struggle ensued. This guy had a weapon, and when the struggle ensued, the weapon went off and it killed the attacker. Hall was arrested, charged with second-degree murder, and then after the forensics were done with it, he was released, and it was changed to self-defense because he had no involvement in this other than being attacked, and a struggle ensued in which the gun went off. There were no powder burns on Hall's hands that would indicate he had the gun in his hands. He had his hands on the gun, but he did not have his hands in the gun. And that incident marked his life and his subsequent demise and death. And there are people that would like to debate that, but it's really not debatable because Hall admitted to himself that he never admitted to himself and everybody else that he never got over that. He killed a man, and he had trouble living with that. And martial arts people and their inflated egos tend to think, oh, I'd be just so fine if I did that. Yeah, I doubt it. Because I know military people who aren't fine with what they did. And they're trained to be different. I had an uncle that he was my favorite uncle, wonderful man. And he was on the front lines in the Second World War. And my dad had told me at one time how many kills he had made, but I don't remember because it was so long ago. My dad was in the Second World War, but he was an airplane mechanic. So he never saw action. Uncle Fran saw all the action. He was in Normandy, the whole shooting match. I mean, he watched all his friends get killed, and he wouldn't talk about the war at all, other than his friends. Talk about his buddies, but that was it. He would talk about certain aspects. But you could see in him, as strong as a man as he was, that what had happened haunted him. And he did better than most people did dealing with it. Because he didn't, as anybody that I was ever aware of, suffer the nightmares or any of that stuff. But there was definitely, he was carrying the weight of the world on him.
Yeah, and anyone that I've known served in military, like my dad, my one grandma's husband, he didn't talk about it, and one of the things that was said is that if you kill someone, you have to live with yourself afterwards, and it may not be as easy as you think.
Yeah. Even when it's justified. Now, that's one of the reasons why when they used to do firing squads, that nobody knew who had bullets in their guns and who had blanks. So that, you got 12 guys shooting, nobody's really quite sure of who the ones were who did the killing. And it was to preserve the soldier more than anything. Yeah, and you need to train for self-defense based on the idea that you don't ever want to have to use it. You're going to get really good at language skills. Steve Stewart's great for teaching language stuff when it comes to self-defense. And I mean, he's American Kempo, and being American Kempo was overkill to the nth degree. I can remember sitting at a grading with Frank Trejo, and I was trying to keep him awake. Frank was such a great guy. And I'm watching this routine, and I looked at Frank and I said, this guy was dead like half an hour ago, right? Frank just laughed. He goes, yeah, we do aren't kind of into overkill, aren't we? This is really cool stuff, man, but wow.
And I think that the one seminar that you and Master Kurt went to, what Master Kurt did is a really good example of self-defense, because it was like whatever the set up the attack was, and he just slapped the guy in the face and said, fuck off, bitch, and that was his self-defense response to what was happening.
Yeah.
But, it made it at the level, but it wasn't it deterred it. It didn't escalate from there.
Well, a slap in the face is a good pattern reset.
Yeah.
People they're not expecting that. That's why I became the king of verbal attacks. And attacks that confused people. And because confusion is a pattern reset. again, because the guy goes, "You're retarded," and he walks away. Yeah, I am, but none of us are going to jail now, and and to use reasonable force because you have to. There was all sorts of propaganda decades ago about, well, you're a black belt, you got to register as a lethal weapon.
Yeah,
it was all biggest pile of BS that
people would ask me that.
That went away finally, but that was just a pile of BS. Whoa, in this state they did it. Yeah, no, they didn't. And somebody's going to leave a comment, well, I had to. Yeah. Okay. You'd have to, for that to be legitimate, there would have to be a legal review board involved in the martial arts that included the court system in order for there to be a benchmark as to who was dangerous and who was not dangerous. They don't even do that with the military guys. Now that military record can come back and haunt you. So can your martial arts record. But there's none of this registry yourself stuff. There have been many cases in the United States of self-defense that wasn't, with martial artists who went to prison for a very long time because what they did was manslaughter. It's sad because it's a function of the ego. And ego is just not good.
Yeah, and I think adding to what you just said, sir, a lot of self-defense is based upon fear that you're going to be injured. So the human experience is to compensate my fear. I'm going to learn how to hurt you so that I feel safe knowing that I can hurt you. But what's supposed to happen is that you become competent and you don't need to prove that you can do it.
Yeah.
You choose to look for peace and harmony and make that person a friend.
Well, a great example of ego in the arts is a gentleman who in this world doesn't think I'm qualified to teach Kosho. And the reason that he thinks that is he wants to be the king of Kosho in Canada. Dude, you can be the king of Canada. I ain't going back. It's all yours. Knock yourself out. And this is one of the things that causes these conflicts is me thinking I know somebody else's journey.
Yeah. And that's a really good example too of fear and insecurity, which is one of the things that creates conflicts and physical fights.
Well, I mean, the travel thing right now, somebody could say, hey, tell you what, all expenses paid, first class, $10,000 for a weekend, come to Toronto, teach a seminar, and the answer is no. Okay, $20,000, yeah, no. Not interested. I'll zoom in if you want, but I'm not going there. I'd rather have a rectal exam with a chainsaw than go back to Canada for anything, or the U.S. for that matter, or even England. I could take a train to England. I just have no interest in going to these places. I've become a homebody in my old age. I want to be here with my dogs. But the self-defense, you got to understand why you're training. You're training to improve yourself and to prepare for something that you pray never happens.
Agreed.
And that's to need it. I used to sit, before I moved, I used to sit at the back end of a bar in Windsor called Cramden's, great bar in its day. When I had to go back for a little while, I went and visited there, and I only did it once because you can't go home. But if you remember the show Cheers, you had where the camera was on the bar. Well, I would have been on the other side of the bar. Exactly the same thing. And bartender used to come around and tell me about all the things that were being said about me. Because everybody knew who I was. Because the dojo was just down the street for one, but also Kurt was in there all the time, and he socialized heavily in there. He practices selling skills basically for the martial arts, going in and talking to people. They should just let them manage the place. They'd have been better off. And as a result, of course, they knew who I was, but I was far quieter about things. Because I went there I didn't go there to socialize. I went there to watch a hockey game typically and relax. And occasionally, something would happen. It was one night that Kurt and I went in. Well, I think it was the last time him and I went in together. And we sit at the bar, and the cops everywhere. And I guess some big fight broke out in the bar, and all of this stuff. And it's like, shit, we missed it. Well, yeah, you guys could help out. Yeah, no. I can help you out. 911. Not my job, man. Not my job. We volunteered to teach their staff a few things, but, I'm not getting involved in that. It's not my business. And you get two egotistical drunks who decide they want to punch each other out. Well, more power to you, dummies. Go for it. You can feel like a man when you go explain to your wife why you have your teeth punched down your throat and now why you got to have all this dental work done to yourself. Anyways, before my chair collapses and Danny drank half of my drink. He's such a cute boy. Thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you in the next episode of this thing we call Really Strange Wisdom of the Grandmaster. Have a good one, guys. Hey, big boy. Soon he's going to want to go out, but it's not time yet.